Welcome to another Seven Stones Indonesia podcast, and today I'm sitting down with Thomas Despin, who's the founder of Reconnect, which is a sustainable island resort in Central Sulawesi. You've reached the Seven Stones Indonesia podcast, where we talk with business people, entrepreneurs and influencers in Bali and Jakarta about business in Indonesia. They share their visions and insights with us in conversations around why they do what they do, which we hope will inspire you to believe you too can have a positive impact and make a difference. We hope you enjoy what they have to say, and if you do, please like, share and subscribe. Welcome, Thomas.
Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Thomas. Where are you from? How long have you been living in Indonesia?
Okay, so I'm Thomas from France. I'm 30 years old, and so I'm from Bordeaux, southwest of France. And I arrived in Indonesia around 6 years ago.
Okay.
In Bali first. I lived for 3 years in Bali, and now I've been living for 3 years on these beautiful remote islands of Buka Buka in Central Sulawesi.
You live here full time?
In Indonesia? Yeah. I live on the island full time.
Okay.
And I go to Bali for holiday and recording podcasts.
You don't go to Bordeaux very often then?
No.
Not anymore. Okay. But I was doing a bit of background research about you, and we understand that you were cycling around the world before you came here. That's a big task. What was the motivation behind that? So
I was 22, I think, at the time. So I was still in Bordeaux. At that time I was doing some event organizing. I had a EO company there, and I was kind of bored, Okay. Money was okay and everything, and I was a bit bored, and I needed like a challenge, and I wanted to see the world. And so, I found out why not doing it by bicycle. So the project was called Startup Cycling. The concept was so basically cycling from country to country, so first in Europe, then in America. And I was meeting with startup CEOs in different cities, and I was interviewing them, learning from them, and then sharing their story and what they were doing on my website.
How many countries did you get to?
So in total it was 22, I think. 22 countries. Yeah, last one was Canada. So I said from France, I went all around Europe. Spain, Switzerland, UK, I went to Baltic countries, northern countries, Baltic countries, Hungary. There I hosted a startup house, which was a good way to meet people.
Did you get a following of people that were kind of interested in, the process of your journey? Like followers, I guess, for
Yeah, actually I started to be more into social media at that time. Okay. So I've been on social media for as long as I can remember, and starting with Facebook, and I love to write and stuff. And starting from this, journey, people started to follow me a bit on Instagram. Okay. I was like the crazy French guy going around the countries, on a bicycle.
It's certainly not something a lot of people would do, motorbiking around the world, sure. Yeah, but bicycling around the world?
You'd be surprised. Actually, there's a huge community of people actually traveling by bicycle.
Really?
We even have a social media. It's like couch surfing for people traveling by bicycle. It's called warm shower, because that's what you need after a long day of cycling. So yeah.
So any particularly sort of standout experiences during that exercise? Like life-changing kind of experiences.
Yeah. So I have a lot of small experiences I could share, but I think the overall main thing I discovered was about myself, actually, more than about other people. It's so when I started this journey, I did it with very, very little money, and I'm talking 400 euros on my bank account. I had nothing. I had no idea how I would make more money. Right. So basically I would improvise. I was sometimes doing WordPress websites from my tent. I had my laptop and I would work for some clients and finding ways, And I was living with very, very, very little money, and that's something I learned about myself, is how resourceful one can be when you actually have no way back. I mean, I wasn't about to call my parents to ask for money, right? That was like, no way. I wasn't about to ask for friends or anything. So I had to find ways. It's kind of like the theory of burning the bridges.
Right.
And I think it was my way to first, experience it, like firsthand, being on the road. I was like, there's no way back. And you see it all the time, like when you're going uphill and you're climbing a mountain, like for example, when you go from France to Spain, and I wasn't prepared at all. I was a bit overweight. I didn't even try the bicycle.
You'd never done anything like this before?
No.
Really?
No, it was like the first day I actually tried the bicycle with, you have like a lot of bags, right? In front, in the back. And the first time I tried it was in front of BFM TV, which is like a French channel who they were recording like the event, and I almost crashed in front of like the whole country. So yeah, no, I wasn't prepared. But you see it all the time, like this thing, when you're crossing from France to Spain, there's like huge mountains, right? It's called the Pyrenees. And it's like 2,000 meters high. And it's already hard for like professional cyclists. And I was there with my 50-kilogram bicycle.
Wow.
My legs were not prepared. It was like snowy. I didn't even have the proper cloth. But there's no way you stop, because if you stop, you just can't start again. It's like that, right? And so that's where I first experienced like this, concept. Like I just didn't stop, and I did it. I mean, first you cross a mountain, then it's something else, and then you have to find a place to sleep.
Right.
Then you're cold, everything's wet, you don't have money, you need food, and each time, that's where like our brain is just so powerful in this way that it can find solution when there's no other way. So that was, I guess, the most important thing.
So when you got to Indonesia, you weren't doing the cycling. You weren't cycling to Indonesia.
So at that time, I was in Toronto, in Canada.
Okay.
So I just finished to cross from Florida all the way up to New York City. A lot of people to meet there. And then from New York City, I cycled all the way to Canada. And it was cold. And I was just fed up with cold weather. I actually went to Florida from Hungary before because it was snowy and stuff in Hungary. So I was like done with cold weather, everything was wet all the time. And so I just opened Skyscanner. I was just looking for places where I could go where it was sunny. And so I heard of Bali.
With the bicycle?
Yeah.
Or just to kind of, I want to put the bicycle in the garage for a while.
I don't know, I wanted to bring it. I always brought the bicycle. For like almost 2 years, I had the bicycle all the time with me.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. So when you want to put it in the plane, you have to dismount everything, put it in a special box, and I carried all my stuff around all the time. So I took 2 flights during the whole trip. First was from Hungary to USA, to Florida. And second time was from Canada to Bali. And it was my first time in Asia. Wow. I knew nothing about Bali except that, it had coconut trees and nice.
So where did you land in the first instance? You landed in Jakarta, I guess?
No, it was Denpasar.
You landed straight in Denpasar?
Yeah.
So okay, you get here and then you put your bicycle back together again and you started cycling around Bali?
So the plan was for me to take a month break in Bali, do some laptop work, like WordPress website, get some like money, and then the plan was to go around Asia by bicycle. That was the plan. Obviously, it didn't happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Okay, so why didn't it happen?
So, a lot of things happened. First, I lost all of my money in stupid ways twice. So first time is I got schemed, my car got schemed.
Oh, yeah,
I think that's how we call it, an ATM. And all my money got withdrawn without me knowing it. And it wasn't a lot, but it was all I had.
Right.
And all the cash I had got stolen from the saddle of my motorbike 1 week after. So I went to 66 and I wanted to go for a jog, changing, clearing my mind and stuff. And I didn't know, it was the first time I drove a bicycle, a motorbike was in Bali, right? I didn't know anything that, you shouldn't put your bag under the saddle, and I just left it there. When I went back, the bag was outside. I still had my passport and everything, but all my cash, I think some electronics and stuff got stolen. At least he left me my passport.
Wow.
But I was left with 100,000 rupiah after 1 month in Bali, and that's the reason why I stayed, because I literally couldn't go. I couldn't go anywhere. Okay,
so let's fast forward that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now you've got this, you've built this sustainable resort on, I guess, what some people would especially maybe from European countries, would consider to be a beautiful desert island in the middle of nowhere, right? And it's on an island called Buka Buka in Central Sulawesi. So tell us a little bit about your project there. What's that all about?
So first, when I got there, there was no project. I went there because it was 3 years of me rebuilding myself in Bali, building businesses, and had some successes, and I just wanted to see other parts of Indonesia. So a friend of mine invited me, there basically, and I knew nothing about Sulawesi. And so the plan was basically to have some, kind of like holiday and discovering the Togen Islands, and of course, the plan was also to check out the island. And I knew a land was for sale there, but, I had this kind of, I think at that time I had in my mind this kind of, the dream when you're a kid. I mean, I had this one. I think a lot of people have. It's like, when I be, like older and rich, and I live on a private island kind of thing, And so, and then we arrived on the island, and I was like, it was empty, right? It was like, this is it. That's it. That's the one. It's great. I felt it. Like, it was awesome. And it's like white sand. It was like, jungle, like beautiful. Like the water is beautiful. It's like you see fishes right in front of the beach. Like
it was inhabited. People living there, or literally uninhabited and empty.
Yeah, so a few coconut farmers are living there, but it's not full time. They come when they need to do copra, and a few fishermen around. But yeah.
No buildings as such, like no town.
No, they have those, the small, they call it pondok. It's like a wooden hut.
Yeah.
No water, no electricity.
Wow.
So first challenges was that, there's no water, there's no electricity. Like.
Wow. So you've built an sustainable eco resort.
Yeah.
From what? How did you do that? I mean, surely it's logistically a very difficult thing to do if there's no infrastructure there.
There was nothing. So, like, I have zero background in construction. Right, just to make this clear. So I'm not an architect, I'm not like a civil engineer, I knew nothing, right? But what I is like, when you know nothing, like you go back to what is called, first principles. So it was like, so just take a sheet of paper. At that time I still lived in Bali, right? Of course I didn't live there directly. So at that time I created this co-living, co-working space, and I was living there. It was called Huster's Villa in Ubud. And so I was living there, and I would just wake up and take a sheet of paper and say, okay, what do we need, right? So first thing, electricity, then water, then access. So we need the boat, and I would just like make a list of everything, that came to my mind from the perspective of someone who knew nothing about living on a remote island. And then, one by one, I started to find solutions. Electricity, okay, so there's like solar panels, how's the technology right now? Because, I know nothing, so I would just Google everything, in fact, actually, like solar energy is actually pretty like advanced right now. It works. You put solar panels, you have inverters, batteries, and it kind of works very well actually. So, and step by step, we just like, it was like a puzzle, and I would just put some pieces around and like trying to connect them together and see how it would make sense.
Were you doing that all on your own, or did you have friends and family to support you with that? So
I started on my own. Before that, I never had any project where I had to raise funds, raise money. So it was also, everything was cheap. As you can see, there's like a lot of novelty in my life. I started on my own with money I saved. So former business was e-commerce. I was doing e-commerce drop shipping, did a bit of crypto as well. So I had some savings, that I didn't know what to do. So for me, it was, I need to invest in something new. And after that, once we like secured the deal for the land, and I started to draft some things around the project, then I started to share about it. Actually, instantly, I shared.
Was the project, I want to find a place for me to live, or was the project, I want to build something that I can actually turn into some kind of commercial venture?
So the idea of the eco resort was there from the beginning. I knew I wanted to live there, which turned out is absolutely necessary in the beginning.
Right.
When you want to build something, that's I learned real quick. The idea from the beginning was this, building a sustainable eco resort.
Right.
Now I don't use sustainable eco resorts so much because I just realized those are like terms a lot of people use, and it's hard to know exactly what everybody expects from them.
Right.
So I try not to use some kind of buzzwords. It's an island resort.
Right.
And we do our best to respect nature and to build things in a way that makes sense, so we don't destroy nature. I tend now to avoid, sometimes if you're sustainable and you do one thing that's not sustainable, then everybody is only looking at, but this is not sustainable, and you call yourself sustainable. Yeah. If you want like the most sustainable eco place is no place at all, right? So
have you completed the resort yet? Or is it still a project in process?
It's always in process.
It's always in process.
Another thing I learned, it's never like 100% done. So the way I said, like, we welcome guests already, right? We're operational.
How many units have you got?
Now we have 10 rooms.
Okay.
Building 2 more at the moment as we speak. And as soon as we were ready enough, so that was my main big question. What means ready enough, when can we actually have people living there? Because when you spend years building something, like, it's not even about the money, it's like you want to see how people actually enjoying this thing you've been enjoying yourself, on your side. And so it's been a bit more than a year. So actually we started welcoming guests right in the middle of the pandemic.
Wow. So that's obviously had a big impact on either the number of guests that you're able to receive, and also I would assume in sort of the development of the project itself. I mean, if you haven't got guests coming in, then you're obviously not going to have the same kind of cash flow happening, which is then going to impact whether you can buy this or you can pay for this and things. So what kind of impact has COVID had on you?
It was pretty bad. I almost stopped everything several times, to be honest. Yeah. So what happened is that in the beginning I invested myself, right? And then I raised some funds, right? Okay. From people to invest, together in the company and to develop the resort. And like, I think because of COVID, I'm sure because of COVID, we had several rounds, right, of funding, and basically we had 50% of the funds we needed to develop what we wanted to. 50% basically got cancelled because nobody wants to invest in a tourism destination. There's a lot of risk involved. It's like remote, there's a lot of uncertainties.
Well, when you say remote,
it's remote.
Give me a picture of remote. I mean, you can only get there by boat, I guess.
Yeah.
There's no
it's an island,
airport nearby. There's no seaplanes.
So, seaplanes, working on it, maybe next year. Right now, if you come from Jakarta, you take a flight from Jakarta to Palu, which is the capital of Central Sulawesi, and there you take a small flight, 40 minutes, like the small planes, it feels like a private plane almost, 40 minutes to Ampana, and there you take a boat, it's like 20-25 minutes. So the boat trip is close, you don't feel it.
Right.
It's the coming from, it's 2 flights from Jakarta. Right. So remote.
So that's pretty much most of a day to get there. Yeah.
And the flight, because of the pandemic, the flight, it has to be on Friday or Monday, So,
oh, really?
Yeah. Before the pandemic, we had this Makassar to Ampana flight,
Okay.
Which made everything easier, but, we need to adapt and... And most of our market now, anyway, is local market.
Is it?
Locals love the place. Yeah.
Locals not from Sulawesi, from
Sulawesi.
From Sulawesi.
Yeah, as surprising as it can get. Yeah, I was surprised how much locals actually love to go there from Palu and Luwuk, and they would take a car. If there was no plane, they would take a car for 8 hours, 5 hours if they come from Luwuk. Sometimes just to spend the day and then go back home.
Wow. And
it was actually. I'm super grateful. Without the local market, it would be done.
Right.
Yeah, it's like 99% of our guests are local guests.
Hey, that's kind of interesting too. I mean, we've been sort of involved in and out with tourism even before Seven Stones. I was doing a lot of work with hotels, and Terrier was working with different sort of hospitality projects and things like that. So we're kind of really connected in many ways with the tourism industry. And one of the stats that's kind of interesting is that before COVID hit, foreign arrivals here were year on year getting better and better and better. And I think just before COVID hit, it just broke 6 million or something like that.
I heard that. Yeah.
Domestic arrivals during the same period was almost double that. But nobody's really looking at the domestic market in that sense. And we've always argued that the domestic market, with a country of almost 280 million people, is something that we should be, as business people, we should actually be looking at, and not necessarily relying on a foreign market, but like focusing and concentrating on nurturing that domestic scene, you know.
And I think Terry advocated for that. I think I've seen him sharing about that. And I 100% agree. Like, the local market is just so undervalued, so underrated right now. Just so you realize, like, so we're in the Togean Islands archipelago, which there is like 20-ish other resorts like back
is
there.
It really?
Yeah, on other islands. It's like 50 plus islands, diving resorts mostly. During the same period, I think 50% of them closed down, got bankrupt, or like permanently, like stopped being a resort. And most of them were like 100% oriented on the foreign market.
On the foreign market.
What we did, so there's two things. The first one is luck, because we are the island that's the closest from mainland.
Okay.
And it turns out that locals don't really like to be they don't mind being 10 hours on the road, but like if they have to spend more than 1 hour in the boat, they don't like it.
Right.
And it's like 20 to 30 minutes to get to our island. So that's, I mean, that was a good decision from the beginning, but then it was like, and the second thing is, very, very early, when I realized, like, we're not gonna have like half of the funding I was expecting, we're not gonna have it, right? So what I decided back then was to pivot like 100% and to only focus on the local market. I started to speak in Bahasa on our social media. I started to, like, be more involved, with locals, local government communities, and, like, be more out there.
Right.
I even did TikToks, in Bahasa, which actually was a good idea. I didn't know back then, but kind of went viral because I'm the only white guy there, especially on TikTok. So it worked quite well. I was trying to share some educational content about ecology and stuff, and also funny TikToks, and it worked well. And so I did that, like 100% focus on the local market, and that saved us. Very good. Without this, I wouldn't be sitting here, I would be crying there.
So how many people have you got working there? I mean, it's not. You've got to have some kind of workforce, right?
Yeah. And that was the hard part, because when you don't have guests, you still need to get people to take care of the place.
For sure.
So right now we have, like, anytime we have between 10 and 15 people like living there, actually. Most of them living there.
Doing what? Typical hotel stuff, so like maintenance and so housekeeping and food and beverage and that sort of
housekeeping, food and beverage. And like the particularity of our place is because the staff is living there.
Right.
Like, we need to have someone cooking for the staff, even though we don't have guests, So we have staff cooking for the staff, like a lot of things, a bit different than hotels where people are not like eating 3 times a day there.
Right.
So we need to provide like a house we have a staff house with rooms, just for the staff, and food just for the staff and stuff like that.
Wow.
Beach cleaning is one, actually, you have no idea like how frequently you need to clean the beach. Which is great, because we learned how to reuse most of the organic materials we found. Like, we're building a lot with driftwood we find on the beach. We're getting like pretty decent at building like crazy stuff with things we get on the beach.
And the people coming over knowing that that's kind of where your mindset is, and they're kind of coming over to kind of experience this, let's try and live with nature a little bit kind of thing, or they get there and it's a bit of a surprise. And how does that work? The market mix, if you like.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Foreign market and local market have very, very different expectations from my experience there. Not saying all the local market is the same, but the local market we have there, at least, they're more into like the novelty kind of thing, being in nature. They actually like this, but they, for example, compared to foreigners, they don't really care so much, most of them, about sustainability. They don't really, I mean, they're actually shocked when they realize electricity is coming from the sun and the water is coming from the sea and we desalinate it, you know? But initially they don't actually have this curiosity of asking. Whereas foreigners, that's the first thing they want to know. That's the first thing they love about the place. It's like it's remote, it's off the grid, we produce our own energy, and that's something they feel good about.
So
locals are more like shocked by it.
That's actually a very interesting thing. If that's the perception of a foreign visitor compared to a local domestic visitor, what is the sort of motivation for a domestic visitor to come to you? Is it just because it's the closest offshore island to that part of the country, or is it because they want to do diving and snorkeling? I mean, why go there in the first place, right?
Snorkeling is the top one activity we have, locals or foreigners. We don't have a dive center yet. It's planned, but we don't have it yet. Snorkeling, that's the main activity. Like people taking a boat, going around the islands, you know, and just around our island, I mean Buka Buka Island, and doing like a few, you know, spots. They can have a picnic, you know, on the beach there. That's the main thing. The second thing is we have this. I try to tailor things there as experiences, because I noticed that what people, locals or foreigners, connect more with. So we have this over water barbecue experience when we just bring all the stuff, the tables, the sofas, everything on the floating gazebo, and we bring it like a bit over the water during sunset, and we just basically, you know, like grilling fish, you know, over the water. People love it. Like
I'll have that one.
Yeah, like just like cooking the fish, and you're sitting and you have the sunset there.
Oh, nice.
So I try to tailor like a few experiences, and I really try also to highlight the local culture, because like we do have a local culture there. Like the closest village is a Bajo village. So I don't know if you heard of the...
Explain what a Bajo village is.
So Bajo people are known as sea gypsies. So they used to literally live on boats and you going from island to island, and they're very famous for their spear gun fishing technique. They can stay like up to 5 or 10 minutes underwater without breathing, because one of the organ has, you know, grown differently over the generations of living this way. So they can stay for a very long time under the water, and they have those traditional spear guns that they make themselves with what they find and basically recycle materials, and it's really impressive to see them doing this, and a lot of people actually like to witness it, and to foreign visitors, most of them, they want to go with them, and they want to witness it, because it's hard to believe. Like, how can you last 5 minutes, like 10 minutes under the water, you know, waiting for a fish, you know? Like, and we try to highlight it because it's actually a non-destructive way of fishing, and we need that, you know? Like, we need a lot of fish. Like, people go to Nine and they expect to eat fish, and we need sustainable fishing, and that's one way to have sustainable fish, and to actually support people who, you know, were there before us. So we try to work together with them, and
Would you? And hindsight is always 20/20 vision, right? So you know, from all you've experienced with this project in Buka Buka, do you anything there that you regret doing, like, you know, and waking up in the morning and thinking, you know, oh, damn it, I wish I'd never done that, and I could be doing this somewhere else? Is there kind of a second guessing thing going on?
Nothing that comes like instantly, but I guess, so like if I had to do something differently, I guess I would have been more serious about securing the funding earlier. You know, making sure it's done. And I didn't, because back then, you know, there's already a lot of things going on when you're building a resort, especially on a remote island, and it's hard. You don't have people with experience there and stuff. And so I think, you know, I got stuck into this like the legality of it. You know, and because it was such like I hate admin stuff basically. So that's the thing. I'm bad at it. You know, like all administrative tasks. Well, taxes is one of them. One of them. So now I have, you know, like I work with people who are handling it for me. But back then I had all this mental load, you know, of things I had, you know. And I wish I worked with partners earlier to help me with that. Instead of trying to, you know, handle everything. I was like, I need to save funds, so I need to do everything myself.
Right.
And
so
that's one thing I would structure it differently. Yeah.
What advice would you give to any entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast that want to do not necessarily the same thing, not necessarily copying what you're doing, but like from an entrepreneurial perspective, what advice would you give them to kind of make their journey a little less stressful? Because it's never going to be stress-free, sure.
Never.
But what would make it a little less stressful?
So I'm gonna quote a friend of mine who said something to me, and I should have listened more. He said, "You have," and he's in Bali actually.
Okay.
Rafi from Monsieur Spoon. He said to me, "You have two ways to have 10 years of experience in hospitality. First, you work for 10 years in hospitality, and second, you work with people who did." Right.
Yes.
I wish I listened to his advice, I guess, better. I mean, I did listen to it, but I wish I did this more. And so, to answer your question, I would advise people to work with people with the experience at the very early stage. Because when you do that, it helps a lot. I face it with architecture as well.
Yeah.
I face it with the legality, taxes, like you can't be good at everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, when you start this journey of being an entrepreneur, you kind of think that you have to be good at all of this, but you don't, right? You have to find ways. I mean, when you don't have the resources, you can't hire people, right? But you can find partners. You can find So I guess, that would be the advice. Like find partners at an early stage. People who can help. People with experience. A lot of very successful people. I mean, Terry is one of them. He shared a lot with me. And I didn't hire him. I wasn't a client of Seven Stone at that time. I was basically free consulting at that time, and I'm very grateful. Like other friends of mine, they share with me about architecture. And when you have a project, when you're pushing something, actually a lot of people are happy to share what they know.
Sure.
I noticed that very successful people are always very happy to share. What they know.
That's interesting too. I mean, I know a few people here that have tried to open up either a restaurant or a bar or a hotel or a resort with zero food and beverage and hospitality experience. Again, with that similar kind of mindset, like they, I've been doing this business for so long. How hard could it be, and what could possibly go wrong with all of that? And not really wanting to either listen to advice or take ideas on board from people that have gone through the journey that they're about to go on.
Believable people.
And 9 out of 10 of them don't succeed. They'll either close down in one way or the other, or bleed money one way or the other, and it won't kind of be that beautiful dream that they were expecting it to be. So I think that's good advice, man. I think that's a good thing. And it's one thing that we do at Seven Stones a lot, is we love to share data and information
that,
about
and that's
stuff.
what I like.
And it's important. We think it's important to kind of get the word out there that if you believe in yourself and you're prepared to listen to what other people are trying to help you with, then you can do anything you want. Really.
It's very important. Like when you have the concept of believable people, principles. It's like when you have someone with the experience, with the knowledge, and the sharing with you, so they're believable in their domain of expertise, and this is gold. It's gold. Like when a friend of mine shared with me, and he looked at the early drawings I had for the resort, and he basically told me it was like garbage. I mean, not garbage because it was ugly, but because he said cost-wise it didn't make sense, and he shared that to me over it was over dinner. Boys and cows, and it was 2 hours, and after that I went back to my house in Ubud on my motorbike, and I was crying, literally I was crying, he destroyed me. But the day after at 6 a.m. I was at my desk, I had a sheet of paper, I was like, damn, he's right, I'm gonna make something different. And the end of that was I took a flight and I went living there so I could understand what was available, and that's the best decision I took. So those people are very important.
So I know that you're kind of not going to drop Buka Buka and Sulawesi and forget about it. But what other parts of Indonesia would you see as being available to do what it is that you're doing in the hospitality sector?
There's a lot, I guess. Like, so what I loved about Buka Buka was the remoteness. Actually,
Right.
for me, it wasn't. I mean, it's tough during COVID and pandemic because people can't get there. But beside that, that's the kind of thing. I think people are gonna look for that more and more and more. Like, Bali just reopened recently, and I mean, based on my feeling, it's already too crowded.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
very happy for Balinese and
Yeah.
people with businesses, and it's great that they
Yeah.
can finally breathe, right? However, for what I like to do, I like remote areas, and Indonesia is great.
Lots
like you
of
have
remote areas.
15, 17,000 islands.
Yeah.
Half of them don't even have a name.
Yeah.
Which is something a lot of people don't know. But and with the technology we have right now, solar energy, desalination, soon I hope Starlink is gonna make it to Indonesia. So Starlink is like this, satellites, internet, like high-speed internet, And with what we witnessed during COVID, which is a lot of people now working remotely.
Yeah.
And I hope governments are going to be more and more open to welcoming these
Would
people.
you see your project as being like a remote working destination?
Oh
you
yeah.
think?
Oh, yeah. As soon as Starlink is here, that's what we're going to do. That's going to be
Okay.
our target. Digital nomads, remote workers. As soon as the legality of them being in Indonesia and working in Indonesia is clear, like 100%. I mean, like that's my crowd, I'm an online entrepreneur. Like that's my background, online marketing, building businesses online.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So as soon as it's possible, yeah, of course. But to answer your question, actually more like precisely, so you ask about other areas, right, of Indonesia. One of them, I'm actually talking with a friend about opening something there. Like Sumba is a great, I think, destination. Still have the remote vibe.
Yeah.
Still not so developed yet.
Yeah.
But it's already proven because you have Nihi there, and you have like some places already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like reassuring for investors. So I think a lot of people are gonna.
Would you consider doing something in a different place like Sumba?
I would think about it. Yeah. Access being a thing I would consider. Like,
right.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Sumba is one flight away from Bali.
Yeah.
Which makes it very easy to to access, and I think Sumba could be very nice destination for people, expats living in Bali with second homes there, or like a surf house there. Like Sumba is great for surf, right?
Yeah, super. Yeah.
We don't have surf there. I'm not a surfer, but I know a lot of people would definitely get like a holiday house. I see Indonesia and a lot of country moving more towards long-term tourism, long-term stays.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on the domestic side of it, but mostly. Also on the domestic side, like people from Jakarta coming to Bali working remotely, but mostly from like foreigners, coming to Indonesia for 2, 3, 4, 5 months working remotely. I mean, we saw it, like remote work works, right?
Well, everybody was a remote worker at one point, right?
Yeah.
The last 2 years, Yeah.
And we knew it. I mean, it wasn't a surprise. Like when I organized the first startup house in Budapest, it was like 5 years ago. So startup house just like digital nomads for a month in the same apartment and sharing, brainstorming and stuff, and I do these kind of events, and like it was already our like theory, like 10 years from now everybody's gonna work the way we're doing now, like back then we were like weirdos, from the laptop, in cafes, and like people thought it was weird. Now everybody's doing it. We got a pandemic, and like suddenly everybody's working remotely, and it's like we have Zoom, we have like internet is a limit, but once you Starlink works, right? It's just a matter of time before it arrives to. It's already in the Philippines. They had to deal with Philippines. I really hope soon it's going to arrive to Indonesia. Like technically,
I would suggest that the chances of something like that or an equivalent to that are very high actually.
Yeah.
I know the government here is really keen on developing digital businesses and access for people to be able to do entrepreneurial ventures related to digital platforms and things. They're very keen on that. So
I know it takes time. I know like between the moment where they are aware that it's a thing and they should go that way and the moment when it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
I know it's taking time, and I know a lot of people also kind of doubting that this is going to happen in Indonesia. Now, like Portugal is like one of the most major hubs, Mexico, other destinations. But I think like Indonesia and Bali and other islands in Indonesia have like a lot of actually a huge potential.
Oh, absolutely.
In this market. Like
we were doing a podcast with a guy called Florian, who's got a business called Midstay, and it's a platform for digital nomads or remote workers to find a community, because apparently loneliness is a big problem with digital workers.
It is.
So to find a community, to find things like accommodation, visas, SIM cards, activities and all that sort of thing. And I was in the podcast, I was quoting to him something that I'd read a couple of days before in one of the digital nomad workplaces, that Canggu in Bali was one of the most popular places for digital nomads. And the number of digital nomads that this particular source said something like 6,000 digital nomads that they know of that were living in Canggu. And Florian turned around and he says, no, I don't think that's the right number. He said, I think it's at least 10 times that. So at least 60,000 digital nomads in Canggu. And if you drive down Canggu, you can see it because the traffic's crazy. But the number of people that are accepting that digital work, remote work is more and more acceptable, I think is just going up and up and up and up. Not just from the guy on the laptop's perspective, but also employers are having the same kind of mindset with it. If I can keep you working for me remotely and you can live wherever you want to live, then why not do that?
Why not?
You know? I think, you know, what you're talking about with Buka Buka becoming a hub, if you like, or at least a destination for remote workers, I think it's a great idea.
I think like people now are more and more conscious. Like we have a generation of people like on the market for work. You know, they were born with internet. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever for them to be in an office. You know, and like, you know, it's funny like when you see like tech companies, Google, Facebook, and everything, and now they're trying to get people back in the office. They're gone. Those guys are dinosaurs. You know, it's done. It's finished. You know, like people don't want that. You give them a taste, you know, for 2 years of like you can work from home and you know it works. You know, and like productivity went up, you know, like, you know, so people don't want to go back to office. Like you can work from like Buka Buka or Bali or Canggu, you know, you have coconuts and it's warm and you have like friendly people, or you can be like in London or Paris or New York with like stressed people, you know, like the weather is not good, everything is expensive. You know, and I think it's a good thing. A lot of people, like I've seen in the expat communities, like criticizing, you know, digital nomads a lot. It's like you're taking advantage of, you know, life being cheap here, and you don't pay taxes and blah blah blah. But like this can be regulated. You know, I think it's it's detail. You know,
for sure. I mean, again, this came out of the conversation I was having with Florian. He was saying that without the digital nomad core, the core of digital nomads that are out in Canggu right now, without them, Canggu would have gone down like that. Those guys were actually the ones that were supporting the community during COVID.
That's why I don't get the narrative of like, you know, digital nomads taking advantage, you know, of cheap prices and everything. I mean, that's, you know, that's actually supporting locals.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
Like, you know, the tax thing and the legality thing, you know, it's this.
That'll sort itself out. I think.
I really hope government's going to go towards this, you know, regulating stuff.
Well, we also hope that your Reconnect project is a huge success.
Thank you.
Like I say, I love the idea of the digital nomad market, and if it works and you do Sumba and then you do another one and then you do another one, I think it's a really good mission, man. It's a really good mission. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Keep in touch and let us know how you go.
Okay, thanks. See you.